This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Philippi. My guest is Jeanne Drevas. She's an artist who lives here in McMinnville, and she is new to the Art Harvest Studio Tour this year, having recently moved here from Virginia. So I'm really anxious to see your work because from what I've seen, it's so interesting.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I want to correct you. I live down in the Sheridan area.
Oh, okay.
So not up here in McMinnville.
Oh, I see, in the Sheridan area, but you're a Yamhill County artist.
Yeah, yes.
That's perfect. Okay. So when we were trying to decide what to call you, first you said a bark artist, and then your husband said natural materials, and the fact is that you do use a lot of found objects.
Yes. I think the most important part of my art is using materials that I collect that are around me, that mean something to me. And this whole transition from Virginia to a whole different ecosystem really has been very interesting. And you know, it's a hard transition because I knew my land back in the Virginia Piedmont so well. And so I'm just getting to know what kinds of barks I can use here, and I've just started collecting bark this spring.
Wow, okay.
So the most important thing is that it's what's around me. It's how people always created their work. They used what was there. They didn't order their paints from Dick Blick. They made their paints around them.
Absolutely, yeah. And the colors that were available sort of dictated what you were able to use.
Yes, yes.
In your palette. Well, I know that you brought a lot of images in today, so I want to be able to get through them. So why don't we go to the images and you can kind of walk us through as they come up. Here we go.
So this one is made of various barks that I collected back in Virginia. This one was made out here, but that's that transition I'm still in. And the white is eggshells, the eggs I ate. So it's really an eggshell mosaic.
I love it.
Another hand-collected item. And all those little pegs are actually drilled in through the bark, which is over a form. So, and those are all little twigs that I collected.
Oh, okay.
So they're not like dowels that I bought at Lowe's.
Interesting. Okay.
And
wow.
And this one I also made out here, and I was very happy to be able to get this wonderful curved form using those vertical. That's white pine. White pine is very flexible as a bark, and when I keep saying, people are going, how do you use this bark? And in the summertime or early spring, you can get bark off of trees when the sap's really flowing, and the bark can be very flexible, and pine is it's like leather.
Pine's soft anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and so I usually will dry it and then re-soak it, and then I can reuse it. So a lot of these barks are veneered onto wood or a form when they're wet. So all of those little pieces of bark on that image were held down by little push pins to hold them down.
Until they set up.
Yeah, very labor intensive.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And then I pull them all out and drill the holes. But I was very happy to get this beautiful curve of the white pine on that. It's
beautiful.
The bark is always I'm always pushing it to its limits, and it's always saying, no, you can't go that far.
Okay,
so
that's far enough.
And every little ding that's in it from my collecting it, or maybe it was injured in its earlier life before it became sculpture, all affects how it dries. So I really have to dry it over forms. But one of the wonderful things, like in this piece, that wonderful scar going down the bark is, what I wanted to highlight. It's a lot of my work is. I came from a craft tradition. I was a potter for 40 years, and I've finally given that up. But crafting is what's really important to me. So I spend forever on each one of these pieces.
Well, obviously they're very meaningful to you and very personal.
Yes, yes. And this one is kind of easier to make, and it's hollow. It was a long piece of bark, and then I scored on the outside of the bark. The inner bark, the cambium layer, is the tougher part. And so I can just score the out part, so the outside part so I could bend it. And so that's one piece of that, and that was tulip poplar. That is also an eastern bark.
Okay.
But I'm getting onto my Doug fir and my alder and some birch I've also
I was going to say
collected.
birch. I love birch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And this one, I like to tell stories also, and this one is a turtle shell that's hinged. And this is a close-up of a piece because I wanted everybody to see it. And I made that head inside, and it turned out to be an older friend of mine who has since passed. And I didn't know that was going to happen. It just turned out to be who it,
Yeah, who it turned out to be.
Yeah, yes.
How interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's another turtle. And these are my other pieces that I do, and which I started off, I love the late Egyptian wrappings of mummies. And I started off making those very elaborate wrappings. And then they just totally morphed into these other, but I still call them mummies. But this is my other, see, here are some bundles. I love bundles. There's little bundles
I
on
remember
this.
you said that, yeah.
We'll talk about that. But this is from a bucket that I found out in the desert with radial tire wires that I found in a burn pile. So now I know what radial tire wires, what radial means in a tire, because all those wires wrapped around there are from this burn pile that I found them in. So, and
That is incredible.
I wanted to show this image because of my moving here. You know, I was feeling disconnected, and I've traveled, and so I did a couple of pieces that were vessel oriented that were rather, you know, I made a boat that was very leaky, and then these poor people migrating, but
The refugees.
yes,
Yeah.
as I felt. But then I was having so much fun making them. I made this another wonderful image, which I think is next. Another piece, yes.
Ooh, that's
Searching
pretty.
for the yellow submarine, and this is made out of a metal globe that I
get it. Okay, yeah.
got at Cherry Street Metals in Salem, which is a wonderful place for people to go visit. They have a wonderful area.
Like salvage stuff.
Yeah, salvage stuff.
Oh, interesting.
So that was made out of that. And then I think the last image is, this is a repurposed doll, and I call it Fledgling, and she's a kind of a wannabe, which is how I feel out here now. I'm an Oregonian wannabe, and all that takes time, and so here I am.
Well, I mean, really, what an incredible journey, and you can kind of see your process a bit as well, you know. But when you were first starting out showing us the images, I was thinking about, you know, the Native Americans and how they made canoes out of bark. So obviously people have been doing things with tree bark for a really long time,
Yes.
useful and decorative and all kinds of things.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah, yes, and there's a traditional basket made, well, back in Virginia, they would use oak to make baskets, but also if you wanted to make a very quick basket, you would strip off a piece of bark, and you could just fold it up, and you could put your berries
Like
right
a pouch or whatever,
yes,
right.
Yes,
I've seen
very
those.
quickly done. I'm sure there were many, many, many of those made. So.
Okay, now I really want you to talk about this piece.
And I wanted to bring this in because I made this out here, and it's another one of these traveling transition pieces for me, and I love making little bundles, and so here's some more. And I spent 2 days just making bundles I was just grabbing stuff out of my studio, and then I got a piece of cedar to mount the piece on, and I thought, oh, this is a turtle, and so I wood burned the base, and so she became a traveler. And these bundles, which I thought were going to be burdens, really to me are quite magical. And you know, so I brought a lot of.
They're like your charms that you brought with you, and your
I brought my
hopes and your
intention.
dreams. Yeah,
I
love them.
Of moving out here, and you know, for me, it's a pretty powerful piece, and it's really helped me be here. anything I make and anything I collect, and anytime I go dancing out here and explore, it just helps embed me further and further into this great, great country I've moved to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, Oregon's a really nice place. I've lived here a long time myself now, but when I moved here, I mean, that was 27 years ago that I moved here. I never really thought about, oh my gosh, I mean, obviously I was moving someplace different. I grew up in California, but moving here it seemed like an adventure to me.
Yes, it is. Yes.
You know, just a big adventure. Of course, I was really young then too. You know, and everything's wide open. I think when you're older too, you know, it's more of a conscious decision. We're going to do this, and this is why we're going to do this,
Yes.
and it's very deliberate. And so and you have roots in a place. I mean, obviously, you'd lived in Virginia all those years. You have really deep roots to say, I'm going to pick up and I'm going to go where your husband has deep roots
Yes.
as well. So
Yes.
there's that piece of it, and the whole partnership comes into play, and
Yes.
how that works for both of you.
And we finished off, we live in a passive solar house, a new house
Oh.
that we finished off, including trimming the 50-plus windows and putting down the floor, and I did all the tile work for the bathrooms.
Well, I can imagine you'd be great at it.
Yes.
I mean, you're so artistic and crafty.
Yes, and I know this is a very short show, but I did build my own house back in Virginia. It's one of those handmade hippie houses, and
Cool.
we can do a whole show on that someday, maybe.
Yeah, well, you'll have to come back. We will do a whole show about that. But I just really wanted you to talk about this piece because I love it so much. Now, before the Art Harvest Studio Tour, which is the first 2 weeks of October, and you'll be showing out in Sheridan, will you be showing anywhere prior to that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm really, I think after the tour, I'll finally feel settled enough to
Grounded enough, yeah.
to start approaching some galleries, just figure out where I want to be, because of my production has not been so great.
So right now you're focusing on getting a body of work together for the show.
Yes.
For the tour.
Yes.
And you know what? I mean, you're going to meet so many great people. I mean, I know you already have.
Yes.
But just the people who come through that really give you so much positive feedback about what you're doing, and that's going to be a good experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm really looking forward to
Oh,
it.
good. I'm so glad. That's wonderful. So people can find you through the Art Harvest Studio Tour website at this point.
Yeah.
And then that can link to you and your work if they want to get in contact with you prior to that. But since you are one of the new artists in the Sheridan area,
Yes.
which Dave Hansen was just here talking
Right,
about.
yep.
I mean, Sheridan's really growing this year for the tour, so it's definitely going to be a focal point of one of the days on the tour, for sure.
Well, that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really want to thank you for coming in today.
you so much.
And wish you a lot of success.
Thank you.